Entrepreneurship is one of the best journeys someone can take, but it's also one of the most difficult. And we hear a lot of times people say, well, I've been doing this for a year, or I've been doing this for 18 months and I'm not successful yet. And it's exasperating. They may be doing all the things. Maybe they're putting in the effort, they're learning, they're doing the stuff, but they just aren't making it. And so we really wanted to cover this today because recently and actually now Deirdre and I have met for the first time just the other day. And we've had our business, though, for 18 months. So it's kind of a celebration for us. And the fact that we can do this, people look at us from the outside and think, well, how come they can do it? It's only been 18 months. But it really hasn't, has it, Deirdre?
That's exactly right. So, we a lot of times get into comparisonitis. And when we start doing that, we are almost always comparing apples to oranges because we have no idea what someone else's journey has been, right? Like we only see where they are right now or what they choose to share even. So when we built Encore Empire, Carmen and I, if you have not heard our story yet, we met at a virtual event in August of 2020 and really hit it off, decided to do a joint venture together, and that became a full-blown company, and we decided to work together ongoing. And we have achieved a tremendous amount of growth and traction in a relatively short amount of time. And so if you were to look at that from the outside, you might think, well, gosh, if they did it, I should do it too. But we all come into entrepreneurship with different skill sets, different assets, different experiences. And Carmen and I both, it's not our first rodeo. In fact, it's not our second or third rodeo.
No, it's not.
We've been through a bunch of them. So, all of that plays a part. And so what the point is, we wanted you to think about, if you start comparing yourself to other people or you feel like you are not where you should be or you haven't, gone far enough in your journey and you kind of feel bad about that, is just remember that you don't really know what someone else's journey has been. So the only person you can or should truly compare yourself is compare you to the you of a few months ago, and has progress been made from that point?
That's right. And we like to talk about the cycles of learning. And this speaks to the whole entrepreneurial journey beautifully, because when you start out as an entrepreneur, you have to learn, especially online. Let's talk about online entrepreneurship specifically. You have to learn all the ways to market online. You have to learn how to reach people online. You have to learn how to create a presence online and brand yourself, and what is your expertise and how do you sell that and what are your offers. I mean, I could go on and on, right? There's so much to learn. And so 1 year really is not enough time to give yourself to do all that. I mean, you've got to be in action. So we can't learn in a vacuum. We can't learn just the academic way where you're just learning, following instructions and this is how you do it. You have to be in action. And what does that mean? That means you have to learn, you have to implement, you have to make mistakes, you have to optimize. All of that takes time. So when you think about it, a year or 18 months is almost nothing. And let's say you have the cycles of learning is like you learn about something, let's say copywriting. Okay, that's another thing you have to learn is you have to learn copywriting when you're an online entrepreneur. So you learn about it, you're implementing it, but it's always getting better. And then the next time around, if you take another copywriting course or you start doing more, you're getting more and more knowledge every time you go around the cycle, and your experience expands exponentially, right? But it has to start somewhere. And that beginning part, you're getting traction. And just like sometimes when a vehicle is stuck in the mud or the snow, the tires are spinning, you're doing everything you can, you're trying to get traction. There's a few things maybe you have to try and change and tweak until you do get that traction. And so, when I first started out years ago, I gave myself 5 years to learn it. And some people are surprised to hear that. And they're like, oh my goodness, you should share this. That's kind of why we decided to do this. Is like, what is the realistic expectation when you're starting out your own business, let alone an online business? I mean, for me, I was working full time and I wanted to do this on the side. So I had to factor that in. But even without that, I would say I probably would give myself 5 years because there's so much to it. What about you, Deirdre?
Yeah. So when I first became an entrepreneur, it was as a side hustle. I was working in public accounting and as a CPA. And so my year was, highly seasonal, tax season. I couldn't do anything else but that. So I needed something that I could do in and around that, on the off season. And so I got into e-commerce because the Q4, like the big heavy time everybody was buying everything for Christmas where you could make a bunch of money, was like my lowest time in tax. So I'm like, oh, this is perfect. So I started with that, and I had given myself 4 years to get that to the point of being able to go full time in it, because again, I was putting in part-time hours. And and that's another thing to consider too, is that it's about what kind of time, not only that expertise are you bringing in and past experience, but what kind of time are you going to put in? Because it takes a certain amount of time. You got to put in the reps, you got to put in the hours. A lot of times people, they go, well, I became an entrepreneur so I can have time freedom. Well, that's like my main reason too. That, and I wanted, no ceiling on what I could earn. Like I wanted to be able to earn what I wanted to earn and not have other people tell me, oh, you can, you're maxed out. You can only, earn this much and that's it. But the point of it is that in order to get that time freedom, you got to put the work in ahead of time. Like you have to earn the right to have that freedom, because it doesn't just happen immediately. Like people go, well, I only really want to work my goal is to work part-time. Awesome. Great. You can do that. You can work part-time and get full-time income, but that is after you build your entire foundation and structure for your business. And you have sustainable sales.
That's right.
There's like a whole big thing around that. So it's possible, but it doesn't happen, within the first 3 months of starting your business.
So really the point of all this is to set your expectations and make sure they're reasonable. So it would be great to be able to, start work at 11 a.m. and finish at 2 p.m., and do all the things you're supposed to do in the morning, and do all the things meditate and journal and drink your kombucha and all that stuff, but really you can't create or craft the life that you want from day one. You have to put in those hours to understand. It takes mastery before you're able to then say, okay, I've now mastered this, and now I know how to put it in play in the ways that work for me. But until you reach mastery, you are the apprentice of your business. You're the apprentice of entrepreneurship. You're the apprentice of learning what works and what doesn't. Who are your ideal clients and who aren't? I mean, there's so much trial and error to entrepreneurship that it's really about making sure that your expectations are in line with reality. And we're not trying to be downers here. We're trying to just say, give yourself a break. If you're doing all the stuff, you're going to get there. If you just don't give up, you're going to get there. And another thing is, if you heard what Deirdre and I both said, we both started as side hustlers. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, it can be a plus. We're fans of multiple income streams. You want to talk a little bit about that and how side hustling is perfect for that?
Yeah, it absolutely is. So starting that side hustle and keeping your full-time job, because I had determined that I was not going to work for anybody else for the rest of my life. I was, once I became an entrepreneur, that was it. Now I happen to still have my W-2 job. But the way I looked at it, it was an income stream, and it was paying my personal bills so that I could make money in my business and then reinvest the money in my business, back in. And this is another thing too, that to set expectations around, is that when you start your business, and the level of investment may change from the different type of business model that you have, but the one thing that is the same is that you have to invest in your business. And so to think that you'll start a business and, sign up your first couple of clients and be able to take all that money and just put it into your own personal bank account, that is unrealistic and not a good practice, because you're going to have to invest in certain things unless you're happy with keeping it super, super small. and only having those couple of clients and never growing past that. If you want to move back beyond that, you're going to have to invest. So the job that you have, or even going to get another job, I know I've done that in the past too. When I was first in my business full time, there are ebbs and flows. And so I was in an ebb period of income from the business. And so what I did is I just took a short-term gig. Actually was driving, we had a big event in our town where there was a limousine company that was transporting these people back and forth, from hotels to the site that they needed to go to for this event. And I was actually one of the drivers. So I was like driving a van full of people from all over the world. It was actually kind of a cool gig. It was really fun, but I got paid, I did that for like 4 weeks. Right. And so I got my chunk of money that I needed. And then I was back to my business. So the point is that be open-minded and do whatever it takes to give the business what it needs. And when you need to invest, whether it be in software or subscriptions, or even getting expert guidance, like having a coach or a mentor, or, getting some consulting help, you need to be able to do that, because if you don't, then you're just making that timeline for success even longer.
That's right. That's such a good point. And then also don't feel guilty if you have to go back, or don't feel like you failed. Like, there's such a big pressure. And I think it's just false advertising, or it's false expectations, and it does nobody any good. You're not a failure if you have to take on a gig or even go back to work for a while. It's absolutely not. Think of it as another income stream. And while you're in your job, if you're in your job, pay attention to how that business runs. I mean, you can get a great education on business in as being an employee if you're looking for that. If you've got the entrepreneurial mindset of, hey, how does this run? How do we get more clients? How do we do this kind of stuff? A lot of the things can mirror what happens online in the entrepreneurial space. But the thing that really needs to stand out is your dedication to making it work. And then, kind of putting blinders on to all of that stuff that says, oh, I made $100,000 within 6 months, or, oh, I did this within 3 weeks. My clients just did this. And all that stuff that we see, that's just hype. You really don't know on any of those messages what's true and what's not. So don't let those things get you down. And then don't feel ashamed if you have to go back. Your main goal is your survival, right? It's like we do whatever it takes, and we have to feed that business, and we have to invest, like Deirdre said, or the business isn't going to grow. You can't grow a business without knowing what to do and then not learn what to do. And in order to learn what to do, you need to pay for some expert guidance. I mean, we can do some things DIY, but we can't do everything.
That's right. And another thing that comes to mind as we're talking about this and the expectations is that, when it comes to thinking about leaving a job, or if you've been working on this for a long time and maybe you've been having another income stream, is that we want to be very careful not to get ourselves to the point where we feel like, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a risk taker. So if I don't take this big risk and just suck it up and, feel the fear and do it anyway, then I'm not, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. There is such a thing as also planning and making sure that you have the money that you need in order to go into your full-time entrepreneurship. So in other words, like, don't feel like, well, just because I'm not willing to risk, not being able to pay my mortgage or not being able to pay my electric bill, that I don't have the entrepreneur's heart. In fact, I would suggest that, yes, we do need to be able to take risks, but they really should be calculated risks and, done with a good plan behind us, so that you're not going, that's it, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm quitting my job tomorrow and I will make it work, I'll figure it out, because that's not the best plan in the world. Because I applaud your courage and motivation, but then what happens is that if money doesn't come as quickly as you thought it might or hoped it would, we get desperate. And then when that desperation comes in, it affects our mindset. And the minute it affects our mindset, then that's when it really stalls our growth and makes it very difficult to do the things that we need to do.
That's right. So just make sure that you are setting realistic expectations. It's all about making sure that you can keep your mindset, making sure that you can stay motivated. And if you're setting unrealistic expectations for yourself, you're not going to be able to do that. That just it's counter to what you're trying to really do to buffer yourself and get yourself where you need to be. And so we'd love to have you guys join us at our next marketing methodology workshop, which is coming up here shortly. If you want to learn how to put your marketing plan together for the year and how to create content that leads your ideal clients to your offers, join us by going to the link that we'll put in the show notes. And it is at encoreempire.com/MMW.
And this workshop, no matter what stage you're at, no matter where you are in your business, 9 times out of 10, we find that entrepreneurs do not have their marketing plan put together, or at least not in the way that we can show you how to do it, to where you are using conversion events to lead your ideal clients directly to your offers, and basically having the sale, it becomes a no-brainer for them. So definitely plan to join us. This will be something super valuable you'll learn, and trust me, you need this. You need to learn this to grow your business.
That's right. We'll see you there.